Hey guys, make sure that you watch the video that looks like this that's posted on Google Classroom. This will give you some background on the current event and it'll also explain how this current event has affected people. After you've done that, go ahead and take some time to think about whether or not you have a personal connection to this current event. Maybe you know somebody who lives in Texas, or maybe you had somebody who went down to Texas on vacation and are now stuck there, like one of my neighbor's relatives. And go ahead and take that personal connection if you have one and use it to complete the My Potential Bias. So think about how your personal connection could influence the way you view this story, whether you have a relative that lives in Texas that is now without power, or you know somebody, so on and so forth. All right, maybe you're somebody who doesn't have a personal connection. You might think about your potential bias as a Minnesotan who lives in a very, very cold state and how that might influence how you see this current event. These are literally things that I took off my Facebook feed, not like something that I posted, but friends of mine, like especially friends from high school, they posted a few things that looked like this. So their perspective as Minnesotan has kind of influenced the way that they view this current event. So you could go ahead and use that if you don't feel like you have any other potential bias or your current event report, filling in this portion right here. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to do some background research today, and we're going to start by completing some additional notes. So in your additional notes section of this Google Doc, so right here, you're going to go ahead and just copy down the notes that I'm going to give you. In these notes, we're going to go over Texas's geography and their current power situation. And again, writing those down in the additional notes section of your Google Doc. So their geography and demographics. They are the second biggest state when it comes to land size, the first, of course, being Alaska. And here's just a little map that demonstrates just how big Texas is, right? Pretty big area. And it's also the second most populous state. So not only is it big in land size, but it has a lot of people there. Um, Alaska is the biggest state, but it's not very densely populated. California is also a large state, and it is the most densely populated. Texas is kind of the combination of the two, the biggest state in land size the second biggest state in land size and the second most populous state. They have a lot of different types of energy there, which is why they're kind of recognized as a leader in energy. They have oil, natural gas, coal. They also have renewable sources of energy, geothermal energy, and just a tiny bit of nuclear energy. If you have any questions about that energy types and how they work, feel free to ask. And the climate there, of course, is arid and humid, very, very hot, most of the time dry. In some areas, they do get some rain, which is why they might have this green vegetation. Most of the time, pretty warm. All right, energy use and production. So they produce 1/5 of US energy. So a fifth of our oleum and petroleum and stuff like that we use for energy comes from Texas. And that makes them a lot of money. It produces a lot of money for their economy. Most of their energy is from oil and petroleum. And this industry also uses the most energy in Texas. So it's kind of like the saying you have to spend money to make money. In order to make that energy or to get that oil and petroleum out, they have to use a lot of energy to drill it, refine it, ship it, so on and so forth. So just to get this oil and petroleum, they have to use energy in order to get it. And if you look at the graph right here, this kind of shows who uses energy in Texas, and most of this comes from the industrial section. Oil and petroleum aren't all of this industrial section, but they do make up a part of that industrial section. And if we look at the rest of the graph, it looks like residential use is one of the lower energy consumers in Texas, commercial use, and then the rest would be transportation. All right. And these graphs are kind of important. What you have to know from these graphs is just taking a look at the renewable energy section If we look at the production and consumption, so this is telling us who is producing energy. And renewable energy produces very little energy in Texas. Most of their energy is coming from natural gas, crude oil, a little bit of coal, a little bit of nuclear energy. This graph over here shows us who is using the energy in Texas, or what kind of energy is being consumed in Texas. And again, most of it's natural gas, a little bit of coal, a little bit of oil, and very little renewable energy is being consumed. All right. For the rest of the day, you should have already filled out your potential bias section. You filled in your research notes, your additional notes down here. For questions 1 through 6, you're going to go ahead and use the link linked right here in the background box of your assignment to answer these questions. And I'll have a separate video to kind of go over that.